them a little more often for a longer time.
Yeah, it seems like you might. It seems like you might want to visit from roughly like mid-November through like early March.
Yeah, yeah.
See, people are gradually starting to trickle in here. We had a few more on the list, so I'm going to hold off on getting started to see if others show up. I'm not going to do a big formal introduction thing, so why don't those of us who are here just like, why don't you introduce yourselves? I'm Ben. I'll say more at the start when more people show up, but let's see. And Kimberly, can you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kimberly Yon. I am from Rogue River, Oregon, and I'm just checking out the program to see.
Cool, right on. I'm skipping the people I know less well. Hyatt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
So my name's Hyatt. I'm from Maryland, and I'm interested in the MDiv programs.
Gotcha.
Particularly
cool.
in pastoral care, and this had a really interesting name to it, this class, so I went here.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll see if it justifies the name or not. So yeah, I was a little creative. Let's see. Maryland, is that? I mean, in my mind, the whole thing is the DC Metro. Is that DC Metro or?
If I drove an hour and a half south, yes, but I'm
Okay.
I'm in northern Maryland, like right on the border of Pennsylvania.
Okay,
so it's all farm country.
Wow, gosh, I forget that part of Maryland even exists.
Yeah, New Jersey too, which is weird. Like
Yeah.
if you go to the beach part of New Jersey, it's all big fields.
Yeah, I mean, someone's told me that. A friend of mine from New Jersey is like, yeah, South Jersey is all like rural. Like, seriously? Yeah. Kathleen.
Good morning. I'm actually sitting in Omaha right now, but I live in Cincinnati.
Okay,
and
right on.
I'm interested in the Masters of Arts in Theopoetics and Writing. So looking forward to the class.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm realizing the people I know don't know everybody else. So I guess I am going to have people introduce. So, Chris, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Chris Miller. I'm currently in residence in Richmond doing the MAPS program and looking to transfer over to Theopoetics.
Right on. Jane, I know you, but not everybody knows you.
Yeah, I live here in Richmond. I'm Earl alumni, and I've taken writing classes and other classes at ESR. I was taking care of a husband with dementia who died recently, so I haven't been taking classes real recently.
Right. Well, condolences and welcome back. So, and let's see, like Solange, am I saying that right?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, we're just, well, we are waiting to see if folks would who's going to show up. We're just kind of going around and introducing ourselves. I'll give you a second, and then after we'll let Tammy go next, and then we'll go back to you.
All right, I'm Tammy, and I'm just started my first semester in the MATW program. I finished a certificate in Quaker spirituality and wanted more. So here I am. And I live in Avon. Yeah, I'm back. I live in Avon, Connecticut.
Cool. Solange?
Hi, I'm Solange. I am a Quaker here in New York, and I did a spiritual direction program, and I'm interested in possibly taking some classes in pastoral care. Not sure yet where the leading is, but I do a lot of work with immigrants. I speak Spanish fluently, so just really pastoral care for the disinherited. So that's maybe
Pues qué bueno. A mí me encanta hablar español. Nunca puedo practicar, pero no es exactamente un pasatiempo, pero es algo que me gusta.
Oh, sí, yo hablo español. Mi mamá era chilena y mi papá francés. My father was French, therefore the French name, but my mother was from Chile.
Cool. Yeah, I love that's one of the lifelong interest in Latin American Spanish. Brown, you mentioned we should have you introduce yourself too, huh?
Yes, I'm Brown. I just follow Ben wherever he goes, man. in my other life, I would like to be like Ben.
I see. Whereas I try to dress as sharp as Brown. Brown is like he puts me to shame every time I see him. Like, dang, Brown's really together. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, we're 5 minutes in, so this may be it for our group. We are going to start by listening to something, and I'm going to share a screen. But for the moment, pretend the screen isn't there, and just listen. So bear with me just a second while I do this. I promise we'll get there. That's weird. Was it not showing me my Chrome? Let me try this one more time. There it is. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share this, but don't look too closely. Mostly just listen. Yell at me if you don't hear it too.
By NPR's Tamara Keith.
Please record your message after the tone. When you have finished, you may hang up or press the pound key for more options.
Hi, it's me, Christine. I can't believe you still have this number, that I still remember it. But there's your voice on the machine, like no time has passed. I'm so sorry for your loss, Nick, for your mom. Can anyone else hear this?
To re-record your message, press 3.
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. Christine Williams. Remember? It's been a long time. I called because I know it's tough right now. I'm sorry to hear about the death that your mom passed. Try to say something real.
To re-record your message, press 3.
Nick, it's Christine. Hey, long time no anything. Too jaunty.
To re-record your message, press...
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. Stacy told me about your mom. It was in the paper here, too. How are you? What a thing to say. I'm sorry for everything. Your mom and I, well, whatever, you know. But I was still fond of her. Is that what I was?
To re-record your message, press...
Nick, it's Chris. I'm so sorry. I'm in town and I wanted to come over, bring you dinner or something. Stacy said you're single again. I left that guy. You called it. Ha! Maybe now we can... No, please no. Let me press the right button here.
To re-record your message...
Nick, it's me, Chris. Christine. I'm sorry about your mom. I've been thinking about you, about her. For some reason, about the time she picked up the phone and said, "You two are too young to be this serious." Remember how he laughed as she spit out the words two and two? I tried so hard to get her to like me. It's weird. I have a daughter now. She's the same age we were. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Ugh.
To re-record your message...
Christine, it's Nick, love of your life. Nice.
To re-record your...
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. It's been so long. I'm in town. Listen, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I'll never forget the house on Del Cielo. Her garden with those ocotillos with the octopus arms and the squat prickly pears in front of the gate. How we said she planted them to keep girls like me away.
To re-record your...
Nick, it's Chris. I'm in town. Would love to see you. I'm sorry about your mom. It's so hard to find the right words. I'm rambling, nervous, so much to say. I keep thinking about the old days. It's weird. I have a teenager now, a daughter the same age as we were. I think about us, and it's hard. I think about skiing and finding that circle of pine trees, about pretending the clouds were our kids and giving them all Greek god names, about sitting at dinner with our faces bright red. Your mom thought we were up to something, but we were just burned from the sun and the wind and the future shining down hard all around us.
To re-record...
It's me. I'm in town. I'm sorry.
To re-record your message, press...
It's me. Call me back, please. This is Christine.
To send your message, press the pound key.
Wow. That story by Lisa Rubinson.
All right. So let me ask a really obvious question. Is this a real voicemail message? No. Let me switch over to my notes here. Right. So it's not a real message. It's a story, and it's a story told in the form of a series of voicemail messages. And so I'm going to give us a chance to like listen to it again, but like off the top of your head, why would you do that? Yeah, go for it, Kathleen.
One of the things that struck me in the first hearing was the way some themes repeat themselves, right? That there are, ideas or snippets that keep coming up, and then other ones that get inserted and sort of dropped. So it's a layered approach, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a layered approach. Let's go with Hyatt and then Chris.
To me, it sounded like, Chris in the voicemails was trying to figure out what to say and kept saying too much because there was so much underneath of all of it. And every time too much would come out, and it was better for her just to say, yeah, it's me, call me, because all of that was contained in just those few little words instead of going on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, piggybacking on what you said, Hyatt, and Kathleen, it's just interesting because all of those things were true. Like each of those recordings were true. And it's like trying to figure out what approach to go with when you're trying to deliver something, and then sometimes just backing off.
Yeah. Solange and Brown.
Yeah, I think listening to it again might be helpful, because what I heard when I was listening to it the first time was a lot of her story. It was what was going on with her, and she was trying to make the connection to him about their relationship. And I think she realized it was too much. So I'd like to, her feelings is what I'm trying to listen for. And it was a lot about her story. And I think she got to the end where she got through all of that and was able to focus on what he might be feeling.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good question. What is the story? Whose story is it? And how does using the form of voicemail messages shape the story? Brown, I want to cut you off.
Yeah, I think Solange just said what I wanted to say. There is a sense in which, for me, I had Chris' mother's death. The death of the mother was an opportunity to say something that she's always wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of like used this death to communicate something else that she has really wanted to say, but she hadn't had an opportunity to say it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. Tammy.
I kept sort of tapping into how conflicted she seemed about even reaching out, and am I using this as an excuse, is one of the messages I kept sort of hearing underneath that. And what is it I'm really trying to accomplish here?
Yes.
And am I being kind? Am I being fair?
Right. So we're getting a portrait of these conflicted feelings at this moment. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, this is good. We're getting there, and we're listening to the story. We're figuring out what we learn about the character who's leaving these voicemail messages, right? So listen to it. We're going to listen to it again. I'm going to put a link to the text in the chat too in just a second. But listen also for how this. I mean, we're listening to like what we're learning about the character. Think also about how the story develops and how its development depends on and grows from the form that it takes, the form of a voicemail? How does that form give it possibilities and options and pressures that it might not otherwise have? So give me just 1 second. I'm going to get this, save, come here, chat. Okay, there's the link. And I am going to share the screen again, but you can use that to read along. Let's see. We're skipping the lead in to it. Most of it anyway. Oh, where was it? To here?
After the tone,
Oh,
when you
What she finally comes to.
Well, without any further ado, here is Lisa Rubinson's story, Sorry for Your Loss. It's read by NPR's Tamara Keith.
please record your message after the tone. When you have finished, you may hang up or press the pound key for more options.
Hi, it's me, Christine. I can't believe you still have this number, that I still remember it. But there's your voice on the machine, like no time has passed. I'm so sorry for your loss, Nick, for your mom. Can anyone else hear this?
To re-record your message, press 3.
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. Christine Williams. Remember? It's been a long time. I called because I know it's tough right now. I'm sorry to hear about the death that your mom passed. Try to say something real.
To re-record your message, press 3.
Nick, it's Christine. Hey, long time no anything. Too jaunty.
To re-record your message, press...
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. Stacy told me about your mom. It was in the paper here, too. How are you? What a thing to say. I'm sorry for everything. Your mom and I, well, whatever, you know. But I was still fond of her. Is that what I was?
To re-record your message, press...
Nick, it's Chris. I'm so sorry. I'm in town and I wanted to come over, bring you dinner or something. Stacy said you're single again. I left that guy. You called it. Ha! Maybe now we can... No, please no. Let me press the right button here.
To re-record your message...
Nick, it's me, Christine. I'm sorry about your mom. I've been thinking about you, about her. For some reason, about the time she picked up the phone and said, "You two are too young to be this serious." Remember how he laughed as she spit out the words 2 and 2? I tried so hard to get her to like me. It's weird. I have a daughter now. She's the same age we were. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Ugh.
To re-record your message...
Christine, it's Nick, love of your life. Nice.
To re-record your...
Hi, Nick. It's Christine. It's been so long. I'm in town. Listen, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I'll never forget the house on Del Cielo. Her garden with those ocotillos with the octopus arms and the squat prickly pears in front of the gate. How we said she planted them to keep girls like me away.
To re-record your...
Nick, it's Chris. I'm in town. Would love to see you. I'm sorry about your mom. It's so hard to find the right words. I'm rambling, nervous, so much to say. I keep thinking about the old days. It's weird. I have a teenager now, a daughter the same age as we were. I think about us, and it's hard. I think about skiing and finding that circle of pine trees, about pretending the clouds were our kids and giving them all Greek god names, about sitting at dinner with our faces bright red. Your mom thought we were up to something, but we were just burned from the sun and the wind and the future shining down hard all around us.
To re-record...
It's me. I'm in town. I'm sorry.
To re-record your message, press...
It's me. Call me back, please. This is Christine.
To send your message, press the pound key.
Wow.
Okay, well, let's talk just a little bit. How if you just tell that story, if you just how's that story different than if you just told it straightforward, like Christine said, "Hey, so I tried to call Nick." What does this give it?
Right in the middle or towards the end. No, I guess it was in the middle. The message where she got the names backwards. She sort of confessed her whole thing. Instead of saying, hi, Christine, or hi, Nick, this is Christine, the love of your life, she turned it around.
Mhm.
And that to me was the key to why she was having such a hard time with all of this. This was somebody that she just truly, truly treasured whatever they had. And I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but I didn't hear that the first time, but when I could
Yeah,
see it,
that one,
saw it.
I think I taught that several times before I noticed that.
Yeah.
It's pretty subtle. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it gave us presence, that we're with her in it at the present moment instead of her recalling it in the past.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's a really good observation, because hearing it recorded over and over again, it puts us in the moment of trying to sort out what it is you want to say. Good. And we don't get that moment unless we're hearing recordings than what is supposed to be real time, right? Good. So let's go Chris and then Solange.
The other thing that it felt like to me is we're in real time about her processing stuff that she never really processed, that she never got either to go back to say to him or to the mom or even to herself about it. And she felt compelled enough to reach out to him, but hadn't, had to wade through all that muck first to even say something that she really wanted to say.
Right, which she didn't send him at the end of the day, right? She deleted it.
Right.
Yeah, Solange.
What I found in listening to her is I found her voice changed, and as she remembered both the difficult memories with the mother and the fond memories, I felt like I got to know her when I really listened to her, and I felt this deep love that she had for him, which, if we hadn't heard all those messages, we wouldn't know that.
Right. The multiple attempts to get it right gives you a sense of the layeredness of her feelings.
Right.
Good. Yeah. What about constraints? Does she feel constraints here? What are the constraints of this genre? Think of the voicemail. Talk a little bit about genre, but it's the form. We kind of know what a voicemail message is, right? It has conventions. What conventions is she constraining herself by, if that makes sense? Kimberly?
She has to be brief. She has, a structure to follow.
Has to be brief. That's right. Hyatt.
I guess it's an external convention, but when she calls and she says, I think in the beginning she was just saying condolences, sorry for your loss, like the usual ordinary thing that you would say to somebody that maybe you're not that close to. But for her, that was almost came out of like an unfamiliarity or a guardedness towards this person who, as Tammy said, was the love of her life. So that convention stopped her from saying what she really wanted to say, which in the subsequent attempts she almost did, but then just came back to say, it's me, call me back, please, which is a very loaded please.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, and I'm going to kind of gloss some of what you said, but like there's a question of how deep and how much you can say in a voicemail. Because conventionally, voicemails, like my younger students don't even set up their voicemail period and are annoyed if someone leaves a message. And some people don't even listen to them, but at any rate, the convention on voicemail is very functional information. Like, it's not a place for depth. It's a place for pragmatic. And it seems a little weird, right? To say, we know that you don't say things that are deep and meaningful in a voicemail because it's inappropriate. You do that in another way. So she's constrained by that convention, right? Otherwise, gosh, I mean, a letter, you could say something deep maybe, but in a voicemail, but she wants to say something deep. Yeah, Chris.
She also has one shot. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the thing that I keep thinking about is that she may feel the way her emotions seem to evolve in this, that she really does want to connect with him, that she values that, and she knows this is her one shot, and she wants him to be able to listen to it repeatedly if he wants to, and have it make something that connects them, not is just the condolence.
Good. And that's part of the convention too, because we know that like a thing in the movies that you see when somebody has lost it is they leave multiple voicemails, right? You sound like a little bit of a psychopath if you leave multiple voicemails, particularly for an ex. So she gets one shot, and you got to decide how you're going to play it. Do you say too much? Do you say too little? You got to get it just right. Good. One thing I'd note too, and this is is that many of you will be familiar with the classic plot diagram. I will not flash it on the screen, but it's the flat exposition, and you get the rising action, climax, denouement, falling action. You've seen that. Think back to probably high school or something. This doesn't develop like that. It develops differently. How's it like? What keeps us moving through this? How's it develop?
Ben, I think Kathleen's arm is up.
What's off?
I think Kathleen's hand is up.
Yeah, this
Oh
is
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
My hand was up earlier, but this is partly, I think, also an answer to your question. I guess what strikes me is that there's such a tension between the limiting constraints of the form and the moment of the death of the mother of an ex, right? And that death in and of itself, but then, the mother who clearly she had a fraught relationship with. And so there's this sense in which to be human is to process a lot at these moments of crisis or loss. And yet the form requires you to minimize that processing.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that tension in this case seems very fruitful, because she does a really nice job of demonstrating that this is what she's going through. It just happens to be that she's trying to leave a voicemail about it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that tension and trying to get it right. So the way, we see her through the multiple iterations dealing with that. And so she's trying to get it right. But so the way that the story doesn't develop in the traditional plot line, it's like a Polaroid. If y'all remember Polaroids, like it's at first it's blurry, and we see some dim shape, we get some sense of it, and then another piece comes into focus, then another piece comes into focus, and gradually what happens is we're solving a puzzle. We're seeing the whole story unfold like a puzzle. So the form, the multiple messages that we're kind of listening in on, because they wouldn't have all been kept. The form allows the writer to develop the story in like this sort of non-chronological way, to deepen and expand it like a puzzle. And a puzzle that's constrained by all the things we've said about voicemails, right? Got to be quick, one shot. Conventionally, you don't say too much. And so we see that constraint forces the story into a shape that for me is really, I think this really works. I think this is a lot of fun. And I think it's very inventive. So I want to stop there and just say a little bit about John. Kimberly, your hand is still, okay. I just want to make sure you didn't have anything else you wanted to add. We're getting to some of the reasons, why do a story in this voicemail shape. And this is what's called, this is an example, I would say, of what's called a hermit crab essay. And here we're going to get to the idea of genre as hospitable. like the definition of a hermit crab essay is a story, a piece of fiction or creative nonfiction that inhabits a quote unquote shell that's not its own, like a hermit crab does, right? Hermit crabs find a shell to live in that's not their own, and that's what they inhabit as their house. And so the same idea is here. Your story is finding a shell that's not its own. Here it's the shell is voicemail messages, and the shell is a different kind of genre. So it fits into the conventions. Let me just read the definition: a piece of fiction or creative nonfiction that inhabits a shell that's not its own. That fits into the conventions of a genre that's not usually associated with creative writing. And there's people who do things like theorize genre. For our purposes, genres, just think of like a discernible category of writing or expression. Like a voicemail message is a genre, a letter is a genre, a corporate memo is a genre, a fictional short story is a genre. Different genres have different conventions and they take different shapes. Okay. So the question is, so a hermit crab inhabits these different genres. And, the question is partly like, well, we've answered why I do this, but let me talk about the theme here, which I've tried to shoehorn this talk into. Hospitality. I mean, it's only kind of sort of hospitality, right? I mean, because it's what's hospitable is the shell. But as far as you're concerned and your writing is concerned and your story is concerned, it's really kind of being a very bad, or at least a kind of mischievous guest. You're a guest in this genre, and you get to unfold whatever you are constrained by that genre, but probably not in exactly the way the genre usually works, right? Voicemail messages don't usually work like this, but this story got to inhabit that and constrain itself by it, but also to take shape inside of it. So it got to live there, because these genres are more hospitable and nobody owns them, right? You're not running anybody else out of the crab. They're more hospitable than you might expect. No one owns the genre. It's like an empty shell. It's totally hospitable. And so why do this? We've got to some of the reasons, right? By constraining some aspects of your writing with conventions, like we talked about the conventions of a voicemail. You can't just write an essay. You can't just tell a story. You have to get it right one time. By constraining some aspects of the writing, it frees your imagination in other areas. I mean, it's just enough constraint to help you think creatively. I think it can feel very playful. So once you're sort of out of, you get knocked out of this blank page terror of you can go anywhere, you can do anything. And all of a sudden you have a very specific challenge. How can I live in this shell? And that can feel really playful. And so the constraint can open it up. I would submit, there's probably other ways to tell the sorry for your loss story. I think it would be totally boring to tell it in a conventional short story way. I think an essay that might work, but I don't know how else you make. This is a really great way to make a really singular moment that's hard to tell a story about. It's a really great way to bring out what makes it interesting. And you couldn't have done that without the genre that is hospitable in the sense that it lets you inhabit it, but constrains you in the sense that you can't just do anything inside of it. And you get, there are many other essays that do a similar thing. And I wanted to let us play, but I want to look at one more really quick, and I'm going to put it in the chat. Normally I would have someone from the class read it, but I think I'm going to read it out loud because I'm going to be slightly fast while I read it. So 1 second. Get back to the. Oh man, come back to me. Okay. So share the screen. Hopefully you got it pulled up anywhere. All right, so notice, I mean, the genre is pretty clear, but not like super, super clear here. But think about what genre this is and how it constrains it into something helpful or interesting. So the heart is the torn muscle. Overview. Your heart was already full, but then you saw him and your heart beat, not Morse, but a more insistent pulse. Oh yes, that's him, that one. Not the one you already have and deeply love, but of all people in that large room far from home, he was the one for you. And your heart stretched more than it should have, tore a little and let him in. Symptoms. Swelling, bruising, or redness, the feeling that your lungs contain a higher percentage of oxygen and have somehow grown in their capacity to respire. A heightened sensitivity to glances, postures, gestures, attitudes, and casual remarks from observers, a propensity to blush. Pain at rest, general restlessness, an inability to sleep, fever dreams, sleepwalking, conscious walking, out of your bedroom, out of doors, into the moonlight, or an unknown field shrouded in mist, an ache, or fantasies of same. Pain when the specific muscle is used, when your heart beats to force blood through your femoral arteries to your iliopsoas muscles, your sartorius muscles, your peroneus muscles, each expanding and contracting to force your legs to walk away from him, from thrill, from all the promise and potential of an alternate future. Inability to use the muscle at all, lethargy, apathy, malaise, especially after having walked away from the one in question. Self-care, apply ice, cool it. The early application of heat can increase swelling and pain. Note, ice or heat should not be applied to bare skin. Always use a protective layer. Latex only as a very last resort. Clothing is better, or better still, several feet, a separate piece of furniture, a wall, or a building, ideally a state line, a continent. Try an anti-inflammatory, such as an herbal tea or a pro-con list. Cool showers and brisk walks and bracing air may help. Do not take depressants in the form of alcohol or otherwise. Avoid stimulants, caffeine, chocolate, Cheetos. Protect the strained muscle from further injury by refusing to jump into anything. Avoid the activities that cause the strain and the other activities that are painful. Hold yourself together. Rise above. When to seek care. If home remedies bring no relief in 24 hours, call your youngest and most bohemian friend. If you hear a popping sound signifying a break from your primary relationship, the one you truly know and truly love, call your closest and most trusted friend. Exams and tests. Your youngest and most bohemian friend asks, are you going to run away together? Tryst in motels, meet up in Paris, open a P.O. box, wear a trench coat, give each other code names, assume another identity? Would you be up for a threesome? Want to use my place? Says, it's so romantic. Says, tell me everything. Your closest and most trusted friend asks, what do you mean met someone? Have you thought this through? Is this choice supporting, adding to, enriching, complicated, marring, degrading, not even leaving a blip on the screen in the way in which you will see your life in the years to come? What will you be left with? Regret, memory, or absolutely nothing? Says, time wounds, all heals. Says, I will not say the word in the session, but up. Recommended reading, Anna Karenina, Toast Oil, The Bridges of Madison County, Time Will Darken It, The Lone Pilgrim, Mrs. Dalloway, The Literal Zone, The End of the Affair by Graham Greene. No horoscopes, no tarot cards or tea leaves. If you must, you may steep yourself in stories of passion and price. Years from now, you can indulge in what ifs, but for now, right now, put your hand to your chest and feel what beats. The only muscle you can't live without needs to stay whole. All right, so what's the form? More or less. Yeah, Solange.
Well, I'm in the medical field, so it's kind of like a discharge note from a hospital or a treatment plan. So that's what came to me.
Good. Yeah. To me, because I'm not in the medical field, I thought of WebMD, but but a discharge plan might be even better. Right. And so what's the story? I mean, what's happening here?
This person met someone, ran into
Yeah,
someone, was attracted,
yeah.
instant
Yep.
attraction.
Tammy, you were going to say something too.
Basically, same thing, maybe a chance encounter, maybe a workplace encounter, but something that wasn't supposed to happen did.
Why not supposed to happen?
Well, maybe I should back up. Something outside the lines of the plan of her life or his life happened. So maybe it's not supposed, but it's a chance encounter. It's an encounter that wasn't planned on.
For sure.
And with a lot of impact.
The deepest temptation to cheat.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I read it, is that this is a spark. This person is married, or at least in a very committed relationship that the person's happy in and committed to, that had one of those moments where just the spark and the connection was so intense that it tore the heart. The heart is a torn muscle in this case, and there's going to have to be treatment for it. So she's thinking it through. Any thoughts on how the genre helps bring this one out? It's really different. Yeah, Hyatt.
I tried a similar form in a poem I was writing, not about the same subject at all, but I think it helped the author or the speaker compose their reaction and the resonance of that initial, struck bell of the experience, because so many things were happening, and there's so many urges, so many what ifs, so many thoughts, and they consult their friends, they think about their relationship that they're in, and it can be an overwhelming sort of cascade. So to have the compartmentalization of, this is the cause, these are the symptoms, this is what you can do to fix it, this is what you can do afterwards, helps to really organize, and still has power.
Yeah, and the organization, that's part of what I mean when I talk about how constraints can free you. I mean, gosh, I'm terrible at structure, and this gives you a structure. It just says, hey, go play in the form that you've already been given and tell me a story using those categories. And so I know what kind of thing I have to say along the way. I know how the story has to get filled in. I just get to play with what I say where, right? And so it's constrained us to think of this as a problem and something that needs to be treated. It's also given us that frame, which we might not otherwise have. Yeah, Chris.
One of the things that really struck me about this, because it's so much about discharge papers, is like how little information you get about something that is so incredibly life impacting. And if you've just left the ER and they give you one sheet of paper to go home and follow to keep yourself alive, safe, and doing things that are in your own best interest, and to run something that is kind of equally damaging in some ways to maybe your health and well-being against this same pretty truncated, not long, not deeply, you can go into each of those things and go deep about why you should do each of those things, but it's pretty truncated for something that you could not follow the advice and make a really big mistake.
Oh, for sure. You better follow it, man. This isn't going to heal. This is not going to heal. Might get worse, could become fatal. Yeah, we're getting it, right? And so here's again, we're inhabiting this space that we didn't know could be so hospitable for our writing. It's a playful space to be in. Really quickly, let's brainstorm. Like, what other spaces could you inhabit playfully? Or genres, Hyatt?
what I referenced when I said I tried to write something like this was a recipe list, because I work with horses. I live on a horse farm, and I love how they smell, but I can never describe it. So I tried to find a description through listing the ingredients you would need to put together, and what you need to do to get the smell of a horse. I don't think it went well, but that's something you could do. Recipe list.
Right, it's an experiment, right? Yeah, good, perfect. Anybody else?
An instruction manual, or like instructions like you get in an IKEA box.
For sure, that's a great one. Kimberly.
I used to be Eastern Orthodox and had to confess once a week. So I've tried this with confessions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good. Kathleen.
Yeah, just thinking about Hyatt's example of what he's tried recently. And this is going to sound crazy to this audience, I'm sure, but I was asked to write an invocation, and I've never given a public invocation. I've given sermons and all sorts of other things, but never a public invocation. And it was really interesting to try to translate what I thought was important into this format that I had never used before.
Oh yeah. No, I think that's great. I'll say that I once taught pieces, hermit crabs, that my students didn't quite get. And to help them get them, I suggested that we try writing, if you grew up in church, particularly Protestant churches, you'll remember bulletins have a column that's like the pastor's corner, where the pastor like does their little spiel. I was like, all right, you have to write a pastor's corner column about something that's gone wildly wrong that you don't want to quite name. So that's when you can inhabit the pastor's corner, the church bulletin, or an invocation. Yeah, anybody else?
What about a book or a movie review?
Absolutely, for sure. That'll work.
Sermon.
Say that.
Menu might be interesting.
A sermon.
A sermon. Oh yeah, a sermon could be interesting. Chris, what did you say?
A menu
A menu. Yeah.
Mhm.
at a cheap restaurant against a fine dining experience.
Yeah, I've done like, I played with a resume once. I've seen a crossword puzzle. One of the best ones I've ever taught has been a corporate memo. I've seen a lab report that's really good. I've seen a very well-known piece in this genre is a series of rejection letters that tells the story of like life's rejections and a final acceptance, but in the form of like a rejection letter after you've applied to something. Repeated rejection letters, because those are a genre. Yeah, I mean, so like real estate ads, I can imagine a real estate ad about your childhood house. I can imagine the New York Times does this like 36 hours in or 48 hours in like a given place or city. What if it was like 36 hours in like my hometown has existed in 1990 something, 48 hours in. So you can imagine like what's the form that you could take and inhabit to do this. And so I've done this, when I've done this class before, I've had an hour and a half instead of an hour. So I still want to give you a chance to try this out. And not everybody will get to share, but if someone really feels led, then we'll share. The good news is if you don't want to share, there'll be no pressure. But choose it. I mean, you can choose a form you'd like if you've got one that is sticking out to you. I will make a suggestion though that you could use that I got Brown to help me with today, which is a conference evaluation form or a session evaluation form. Let me put a link to it in the chat, to a Google Doc. And if you, let's see, let's see, did it show
that? Got to request access.
Oh no. All right, let me see. Can you see, is it showing you
See
evaluation
your
form.
screen. Yeah.
You see evaluation form?
Mhm.
All right, this is easy enough to do it this way. So this is one possibility. You can use another one, but you could think any part of this, the most obvious ones would be the hermit crabs that we're doing right now: content, presenters knowledge, effectiveness of delivery, overall experience. Or I don't know if you all know Michael Burkle, but you could mess with Michael and do it here. I mean, meals and worship could also be fun to play in. But I mean, now obviously you'll have to toy with, be playful, what kind of story you'd like to tell here. You don't want to actually evaluate the course. You want to inhabit it with a story or an essay or something. Like you could say, maybe you witnessed, if it were Michael, like an ill-conceived attempt to honor Michael that went off the rails because he's retiring. Or maybe you thought you were at a different sort of conference and you acted accordingly and are still a little confused. Or maybe someone forgot to mute Zoom or turn off the camera, so, I mean, and you're not sure what happened. So it's fun to think of like what story you're actually telling, what's behind your evaluation. So this is a place to be playful, or, to try out one of those other forms too, with something that's, in your own interest, that interests you. So we don't have a ton of time. Why don't I give you 5 minutes to just get started there, and then we'll come back really briefly. So play around.
Mm.
Okay, I'll give us just a second to wrap up. I looked at the schedule and saw that we don't have a strong backstop behind it. I will not hold you hostage, but also if, like, I'll stay a little over if you want to. Yeah, I'm going to stop share. So I'm going to give folks a second to finish up. All right, now, does anybody recognizing that you had like 7 minutes? I mean, we're not, we're grading on, there is no grade, but if there were, it would be on a curve. You know, we're playing around and we're sharing like what we did on the playground, what we did in the sandbox, while we're in the sandbox. Anybody want to share something from that?
I just jumped in with thinking about an experience I've recently had with a Quaker organization that raised money beyond its wildest dreams and executed a building project that was much bigger than we ever imagined. And I thought about it as a recipe, and I only got started on the first steps of the recipe. So the recipe would open, it's a recipe for a leap of faithfulness, and it opens up with one heaping bag of anticipated funding from a major donor. Probably a better way to word that. Pressed down and overflowing. I mean, just unbelievable. Fold in a professional fundraiser, one imaginative project manager, and one very surprised executive director. Stir together until smooth. That's as far as I got.
Yeah, but you got it. I mean, you got it. It's a different way of telling the story. What are the ingredients needed? There you go. Anybody else?
So I immediately thought about a text thread that with my 3 besties from high school that we've had an active text thread since August, and I kind of went through and was reviewing because it gets a little tense in there sometimes, but so I just kind of was playing with that of something that happened a couple days ago and how to make that into something.
Yeah. You don't have to share it if you don't want to, but do you want to share any specifics or no?
I'll just share the first line of it. And this was my best friend writes, so here's a weird thing I've been struggling with. I don't like the phrase, we are so blessed, or I am just blessed. What does that mean? That others are experiencing hardships, war, not blessed? Have they been excluded from God's blessing or some reason? I overthink words and phrases all the time. And so that was like the first line of it.
Mm-hmm. Good. And it being a text thread, there's going to be, I don't know, text conventions are going to be in there somewhere. Good. Yeah, go for it, Solange.
Okay, so mine is, it's on a recipe. It's my morning meditation. Wake up at 6 a.m. 2, go right to the kitchen. 3, put the water in my special kettle. Make sure you do not burn the handle. 4, get the Salvadoran coffee. I recommend organic, fairly traded in a compostable package and preferable bird-friendly kind. Grind to medium ground in the burr grinder. Pour the boiled water through the coffee slowly. Sit in your favorite chair. Set the cup on the armrest. Be sure not to knock it over. Sip slowly, enjoy. Turn on the computer and read the upper room morning meditation.
Good. Yeah, that's a recipe to, I mean, maybe for a good morning or a peaceful morning or something like that. All right, going once, going twice. All right. As I was thinking about this while y'all were writing, it occurred to me that a tie to hospitality I didn't make was, in some ways, you can think about it, if hospitality affects the guest. Like when we're in somebody else's house, we see ourselves differently. We see our stories differently. We see them from different angles. We can tell them in different ways. And I think that that's another transformative approach of hospitality, is the way it opens up angles, ways of telling, and points of view that you might otherwise have missed. So I believe I'm going to stop it there to respect your time as much as I can. Thanks so much for showing up today and for being in the class. Those of you who are thinking about ESR programs, glad to talk more. You're welcome. And I'll hang out here for just a second. You all are, I'm the Catholic faculty member, so you're free to go. Yeah, hope to see you all again. I'll just hang out here and I'll wave goodbye.
Thank you. This is great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It was fun.
Appreciate
Great.
I'm glad.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep.
Ben, are you here to answer questions or just?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can be for sure.
So your the other professor that teaches the program from Bethany, how would I get a taste of what he's about? I did some Google searches on him. He's a little bit hard to find. And could you explain more about theopoetics, because I was looking into that and I couldn't find.
Scott Holland is he's more like Scott is. I'm the craft side and Scott is the theory side.
Okay.
I'm I'm a weird hybrid. I do have a PhD in religious studies and like American religious cultures, kind of focused on like what becomes contemporary spiritual but not religiousness. But before that, I was a journalist and a freelance writer, and that's been another side of myself. Scott has been a pastor, but is a voracious reader of all kinds of literature, academic and non, and kind of a figure in the field of theopoetics. Probably the best way to get a taste of him is probably just to email him and set up a Zoom talk. I don't know that you're going to find a ton of him on the internet just by Googling. And I don't have an immediate place I'd steer you. Scott is going to continue to teach the major theopoetics classes, even though he's retiring from the rest of his job. Yeah, he's, I don't know, Scott's kind of like, he's a certain sort of, he's in some ways one of the professorial archetypes. He kind of speaks in a Shakespearean actor's voice and is always thinking big thoughts and talking in kind of a cadence that suggests a certain depth and a certain angle of view on things. But the way our program came about really was like, I started teaching here about 9 years ago, and my students kept telling me that my classes dovetailed with Scott's, and Scott's students kept telling him that like his classes dovetailed with mine. And finally we got together and we're like, oh, we have kind of a program here. And so then we have formalized that. Theopoetics, again, this is where I have some limitations as not the theory person, but my back of the envelope explanation is to compare it to theology as theologics, in the sense of like, how do we logically connect the ideas we have about God in order to build like a fuller coherent system of kind of how we conceive of God. Theopoetics, by contrast, like the root word is poiesis, which is a Greek word that has to do with making. And so it's a sense that in sort of in every moment of encounter, there is expression being made that's new and different and not ultimately systemizable, if that makes sense. And so it has more space for kind of mystery and metaphor as an approach to the life of faith. So that's, I mean, and Scott teaches 2 whole classes on it. But that's my back of the envelope approach. It's an approach to, living in whatever you name as the more than the this, or the depth of this, and with an accent on traditional creativity. Although Scott sometimes talks, so it says theopoetics isn't about composing a poem, although it's that too. It's about composing a life. And so you're composing and creating out of relationship, and it's kind of, think of something that's kind of constant burbling up, and you're constantly naming it, constantly thinking about it, naming, renaming, metaphorically via narrative, that kind of thing. That's
Okay.
yeah, probably the best I can do off the top of my head.
And you and Scott are teaching all of the classes then, is that correct?
We're the core faculty, but that doesn't mean that we teach all the classes. The way the program works is there's almost nothing there's only 2, I guess 3 classes that are all the way required. And that's Theopoetics 1, Theopoetics 2, and then we give you 3 hours for work on your summative project at the end, which is not a thesis, but that's kind of your big thing at the end. But within that, there's tons of flexibility. Like the core, you have to have the 2 Theopoetics classes, and then you have to have at least two 200 level writing classes with me. But then there are other classes that will count within Theopoetics, like we'll count a lot of the spirituality classes as Theopoetics. There'll be things like preaching and Theopoetics that is taught with another professor at Bethany. Our old Hebrew Bible professor would sometimes do kind of creative approaches to Hebrew Bible. Like, I forget what she called it. It was like fan fiction of, the Hebrew Bible. There's a professor at Bethany whose work is on theology and especially visual arts, but also like her dissertation was on Wendell Berry. And so like she taught a Wendell Berry class, and we'll teach other classes that are looking at other aspects of art and Theopoetics theological lens. So it's not just me and Scott. We're the core faculty, but and we've also been fortunate to be successful in getting pretty decent flow of students to the programs. And so other professors have noticed that, and some have kind of started to bend their offerings a little bit in the direction of the MATW. And then there's also 4 totally free electives in the degree. I mean, if we offer it, you can count it. So, and I tend to be maximally inclusive of what I can count where for students. Like if you want to take something, I think you should take it, and we should basically, unless it involves wild intellectual dishonesty, find a way to make it work. So yeah.
Okay, so Julie told me that Julie's the admissions director.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay,
Yep.
Super nice woman. Wow, super hospitable. She told me that you were teaching a nonfiction, creative nonfiction in August. Yep. Is that right? And right. I've just applied to be an occasional student because I'm not, sure, and I wanted to take that. But she also said, like what you just mentioned, is that it's a very popular program, like that Theopoetics and writing is the most full program right now. So I guess I'm asking I'm assuming that I'm going to get in as an occasional student, but what are the chances of me getting into that class in August, or does it fill up with?
That's a good question to ask that we have never had to ask before. The short answer is I'm not totally sure. I have never capped a class before. So the answer, if you would have asked me that like even a year ago, I would have said, don't worry about it, you're in. I may ask them to cap my classes at 15 because I have one with 26 right now, and it's too much for what I do.
Right.
So though I taught that as an intensive last time, and there would have been space, even with if 15 had been the cap. I suspect it will be fine. But no one's given me approval to cap classes yet. So my sense is it'd probably be fine. But
Yeah, I hear you. You don't really know yet.
I don't know
because,
for sure.
Yeah.
And
And it makes
like I
sense
said,
that yeah.
I mean, like I said, the answer, this is the first time anybody's answered that question, and I've said anything other than don't worry about it, you'll get in. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it's great to have the program's doing well, but grad level creative writing classes weren't meant to be taught to 2016s at the time. So figuring out what to do with that is
totally understandable. Well, I mean,
but
that answers my
honestly,
question.
like, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it though. I mean, go for it. I mean, like usually at ESR, we find a way that things will work out. So I would just do it and then get your foot in the door as soon as you can. And if it's an issue, like talk to me and we'll see if we can work something out. I mean, when I was an undergrad, the thing you did for a full class that you wanted to go to was you went and you sat in and you saw if the professor would let you in. And I mean, like, as long as I don't create a huge problem for myself by doing that, like I would kind of quietly say to you on the side, why don't you sit in?
Yeah.
But,
Well, and I appreciate the limitations. I appreciate it as a teacher, a workload, and as a student getting the attention. And so, and the priority should go to people in the program. Absolutely. So,
right.
I can appreciate it if I don't get in, but I just was just being careful and really before you commit to something, getting a taste of the culture, organizational culture. And
sure.
yeah,
That's
especially because you two are so primary, at least it seemed to on paper, that I'm like, okay, I gotta see, how would this work? So
no, you're right. I mean, like Scott and I are the two main people. I mean, Joelle Hathaway is probably a half step down at Bethany. She's the one that does the visual art stuff because she is someone who that's clearly part of her professional identity is arts. But she's more of a theologian and like I'm the creative writing guy.
okay.
The only thing else, and we do bring in adjuncts too, and I'm going to press for some more of that. Like we've brought in someone to teach poetry because I will tell people I'm good with words. I can help you to that degree, but I'm not myself a poet. Creative nonfiction is the sweet spot for me. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for offering this today and spending time with me. And I'm going to go ahead and try to get into your class in August and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, creative nonfiction it's probably my favorite class to teach. I think it's a good place to start. I really do.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. Thank you very much. And
yeah, great to meet you.
Take care.
Just let me know if you want to talk more. See you.
Okay. All right. Bye.